Hey, service girl, are you slow? Or do you just not listen? Grayson Vale's tone dripped with amusement as he reached out, fingers sliding into Alana Brooks's hair and yanking, sharp and sudden, just enough to jerk her head back and steal her balance for a split second. A gasp cut through the cabin. He released her immediately, leaning back with a smirk, phone already raised as if she were something to capture, not a person to respect. "Wow," he muttered, studying her through the screen. "That face? Don't change it." Alana stayed still, shoulders squared, expression controlled, silence locked tight, even as the sting spread across her scalp. Every inch of her refused to give him what he wanted. And Grayson had no idea the moment he thought he was creating for laughs was about to become the one that defined his downfall. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The morning sun filtered through the worn curtains of Alana Brooks's small apartment as she adjusted her navy uniform in the mirror. Her hands smoothed down the fabric with practiced precision, each movement deliberate and focused. Nina Brooks watched from the doorway, her eyes filled with quiet wisdom. "Remember what I always tell you, baby. Grace isn't weakness, it's strength wrapped in dignity." Alana turned to her grandmother, drawing comfort from the familiar sight of her pressed dress and steady presence. "I know, Gran. First week's almost done. I've worked so hard for this." "That's right," Nina nodded, stepping forward to adjust Alana's collar. "And nobody can take your worth unless you hand it over. Stand tall." The morning routine felt sacred. Grandmother and granddaughter sharing these moments before Alana stepped out into the world. Nina had raised her since she was 12. After years of hardship, neither of them spoke about anymore. Every morning, Nina made sure Alana left their apartment armed with both breakfast and wisdom. "I packed you an extra granola bar," Nina said, handing Alana her lunch bag. "Long flight today?" "Cross country, Los Angeles to New York." Alana checked her watch. "I should head out. Traffic's always bad near the airport." "Call me when you land." Nina hugged her tight. "You're gonna do just fine." The drive to LAX was slow but steady, giving Alana time to mentally prepare. In the crew room, the morning bustle was already in full swing. Rafael Soto, one of the senior flight attendants, was reviewing the day's manifest. "Morning, Alana." Rafael smiled warmly. "You're with us in first class today." His expression shifted slightly. "Just keep your guard up, okay? Some of these premium passengers can be difficult." "I can handle difficult," Alana assured him, though she noticed the concern in his eyes. The pre-flight briefing went smoothly, but Rafael pulled her aside afterward. "Listen, I've been doing this 15 years. If anyone gives you trouble, signal me. Don't try to handle everything alone during probation." Boarding began precisely on schedule. Alana stood at her position, greeting passengers with professional warmth. Everything was routine until the Vales arrived. Grayson Vale swaggered aboard first, designer clothes and carefully styled hair, screaming money. He barely glanced at Alana before snapping his fingers sharply. "Hey! Water! Room temperature!" "Now!" Behind him, Evelyn Vale's lips curved in amusement. She was elegant in expensive neutrals, her wedding ring catching the cabin lights. Douglas Vale followed, his presence commanding attention without effort. "Certainly, sir. I'll bring that right away," Alana responded evenly, maintaining her smile. "Did you hear how formal she is?" Grayson stage whispered to his mother. "So serious." Evelyn's laugh tinkled like ice in crystal. "Some people just don't understand the art of casual sophistication, darling." Alana moved efficiently through her tasks, but Grayson seemed determined to make each interaction an ordeal. He'd barely touch his water before demanding a fresh glass. Each time she approached, his phone would appear, recording her movements. "Can you believe this service?" he announced to no one in particular. Back in my day, I mean way back like last week, flight attendants knew how to smile. Douglas Vale glanced up from his laptop. Standards certainly aren't what they used to be. Sir, is there something specific I can help you with? Alana asked Grayson professionally. He waved her away. No, just documenting the experience. For my followers, you know? His grin was sharp. They love this kind of content. Other first-class passengers were noticing now. An older woman across the aisle frowned. A businessman 2 rows up kept glancing back. Come back here, Grayson called out moments later. This blanket is too warm. And this coffee is too cold, Evelyn added, clearly enjoying the game. Each time Alana responded with composure, Grayson's demands grew more pointed. The phone stayed up, recording her every move. You know what would make this perfect? Grayson asked as the cabin door was being closed. If you could smile properly for my camera. Like a real smile this time. His parents' laughter joined his, sharp and dismissive. Evelyn dabbed at her eyes with an expensive handkerchief. Oh, darling, you're terrible. Just trying to create memorable content, Mother. Grayson's phone remained steady, aimed at Alana's face. Everyone loves a good airline story these days. The cabin pressure seemed to change, though the door had barely sealed. Other passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but no one spoke up. Alana felt the weight of every eye, every judgment, every moment of calculated humiliation. Nina's morning words echoed in her mind. Grace isn't weakness. Her uniform felt like armor now, her professionalism a shield. She stood straight, face composed, even as Grayson's phone continued to record her discomfort for his entertainment. The Vale family's laughter hung in the air of first class, a sound that seemed to mark their territory, to announce their ownership of the space and everyone in it. But Alana Brooks stood her ground, her grandmother's strength flowing through her veins as the aircraft prepared for departure. The seatbelt sign chimed off with a soft ding. Alana stood in the first-class galley, arranging her service cart with careful precision. Each glass, each napkin, each small detail had to be perfect. She could feel Raphael's concerned gaze from where he organized supplies behind her. Ready? He asked quietly. Of course. Alana kept her voice steady, though her stomach tightened as she glanced toward the Vale family's seats. She hadn't even finished her welcome announcement when Grayson's voice cut through the cabin. Can we skip the speech? We all know how seatbelts work. He lounged in his seat, phone still in hand. Unless you're planning to make it more entertaining this time. Sir, it's required that I... Required, he mimicked her tone. Everything's so required with you. Isn't it, Mother? Evelyn Vale looked up from her magazine with practiced grace. Perhaps, darling, you could suggest she try a more natural approach? Some people struggle with genuine warmth. Alana continued her announcement, maintaining her professional tone despite the interruptions. When she began drink service, Grayson immediately found new targets. This napkin's crooked, he declared, holding it up like evidence in court. See how she folded it? Amateur hour. Standards have certainly declined, Evelyn sighed, then brightened. Oh, dear. Why don't you show her the proper technique? You did attend that etiquette course last summer. Grayson grabbed a fresh napkin. Watch carefully now. He made a show of folding it with exaggerated movements. This is how civilized people do it. Though I suppose that's a bit advanced for... Your drink, sir, Alana interrupted smoothly, placing his requested sparkling water on his tray. It's warm. He didn't even touch it. I specifically said cold. Did you not understand? Or do you just not care? Douglas Vale finally looked up from his laptop, his expression one of bored amusement. Son, remember, some people need very clear, simple instructions. Alana replaced the drink with a colder one, ice cubes clicking against the glass. Other passengers were watching now, discomfort evident in their shifting postures and averted gazes. A businessman pretended to be absorbed in his phone while clearly listening. An elderly woman frowned over her book. As Alana moved to the next row, a splash and clatter broke the tension. Grayson had knocked his glass, sending juice spreading across his tray table in a sticky orange pool. "Look what you made me do!" His voice rose dramatically. "Your service is so disruptive. I can barely concentrate. This is designer. Do you even know what that means?" "I'll get you some towels right away, sir." "You'd better. And I expect compensation for any damage." He turned to his mother. "Can you believe this? It's like they'll let anyone work up here now." Evelyn touched his arm sympathetically. "Darling, remember your blood pressure. Though I must say," she raised her voice slightly, "the decline in standards is rather shocking. In my day, flight attendants understood their role." Alana returned with towels and began cleaning efficiently, trying to minimize the scene. But Grayson wasn't finished. "You missed a spot." "No, not there. Are you even looking?" "Mother, she's not even looking properly." "Some people simply lack attention to detail," Evelyn said smoothly. "It's not their fault, really. It's just breeding." Douglas Vale's lips curled slightly as he watched the situation unfold. He sat like a king observing court entertainment, as if the entire cabin existed for his family's amusement. "The way you're wiping that is all wrong," Grayson continued. "Don't they teach you basic cleaning skills? Or did you skip that day of training?" Each word was carefully chosen to strip away dignity, while maintaining a thin veneer of passenger complaint. Alana felt the strategy behind it. The family was united in their sport, each playing their role. Evelyn supplied the sophisticated cruelty, Douglas provided the untouchable authority, and Grayson delivered the direct hits. Other passengers were exchanging clear looks now. A woman in row 2 pressed her lips together tightly. A man near the window shook his head slightly. But no one spoke up. The Vale family's power filled the cabin like a heavy gas, making everyone else hold their breath. Raphael appeared briefly, restocking glasses in the forward galley. His eyes met Alana's, asking a silent question. She gave him a small nod. She was handling it. She had to handle it. "Oh, look at this," Grayson announced suddenly. He pointed to the floor where an ice cube lay melting on the carpet. "Another example of sloppy service. You really should pick that up before someone slips." Evelyn made a small sound of agreement. Safety first, after all. "Well?" Grayson's voice took on an edge of command. "Get down there and clean it up." "We're all waiting." The cube gleamed under the cabin lights, a small thing made massive by context. Every eye in first class watched it melt, creating a wet spot on the navy carpet. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. "I said," Grayson repeated slowly, as if speaking to a child, "get down and pick it up. Now, in front of everyone." The ice cube glistened on the navy carpet, melting slowly as tension filled the cabin. Alana stood perfectly still, her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. "Grace is strength." The silence stretched for one painful heartbeat. "I'll get you a towel and cleaning supplies, sir," Alana said evenly, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed cabin. Grayson's laugh cut through the air like a knife. "That's not what I asked, is it? I said get down there and pick it up." He raised his voice, making sure everyone could hear. "Are you refusing to clean up your mess? Is this the kind of service we're paying for in first class?" "I'm happy to provide cleaning supplies," Alana repeated, maintaining her composure. "Or I can have our cleaning crew address it when we land." Evelyn Vale set down her magazine with a theatrical sigh. "Douglas, darling, you simply must speak to the board about this. The service standards are really slipping." She gestured toward Alana with a manicured hand. "When basic requests are treated as optional, well, it's concerning." "Already composing an email," Douglas muttered, his fingers tapping his phone screen. I know several people who'll be very interested in hearing about this attitude problem. He glanced up at Alana with cold certainty. Very interested indeed. See? Grayson's voice dripped with satisfaction. You're just making things worse for yourself. All you had to do was show a little— Excuse me. The firm voice came from across the aisle. An older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes had set aside her book. But I believe you're harassing this crew member. The woman, Tessa Rowan, according to the passenger manifest, rose slightly in her seat. Despite her gentle appearance, authority rang in every word. I've been documenting your behavior since boarding, she continued, addressing the Vale family directly. The constant filming without consent, the deliberate spills, the targeted harassment, all of it. She turned toward the galley. Mr. Soto? As senior crew member, you should know I'm happy to provide a detailed statement about the conduct I've witnessed. Raphael stepped forward from where he'd been monitoring the situation. Thank you, ma'am. He faced Grayson with newfound resolve. Sir, I need to formally advise you that filming crew members without permission violates airline policy. Additionally, your current behavior fails to meet our cabin conduct requirements. Requirements? Grayson sputtered, his composure cracking. Do you know who my father is? I know you're a passenger who needs to comply with safety and conduct rules, Raphael said firmly. If you continue, we'll need to document this as a formal incident. Evelyn's perfectly arranged smile faltered. Surely there's no need for such dramatics. We're simply expressing reasonable concerns about service. What you're doing, Tessa interrupted calmly, is creating a hostile work environment. I spent 30 years in aviation oversight. Would you like me to explain exactly how many regulations you're testing right now? Douglas Vale shifted in his seat, studying Tessa with new wariness. His hand moved away from his phone. Other passengers began stirring, as if Tessa's intervention had broken a spell. A businessman nodded in agreement. The elderly woman with the book offered Alana a sympathetic smile. The woman in row 2 sat up straighter, clearly ready to add her own observations if needed. The ice will be cleaned appropriately, Raphael stated. And Mr. Vale, please put your phone away. No more recordings. Alana felt the crushing pressure lift from her chest. She moved efficiently, using proper tools to clean the ice and moisture from the carpet. Standing at her full height afterward, she asked with perfect professionalism, Is there anything else you need assistance with, sir? Grayson said nothing, his face flushed with thwarted entitlement. For the first time since boarding, he looked his age, just a teenage boy whose power play had backfired. As Alana returned to the galley, Tessa caught her eye and gave her the smallest of nods. The message was clear. Witnesses mattered. Documentation mattered. Truth mattered. You handled that beautifully, Raphael murmured as they organized supplies. Sometimes they need to learn, they can't just— It's fine, Alana said quietly. Thank you for stepping in. She felt steadier now, stronger. Her grandmother had been right. Dignity wasn't something others could take unless you surrendered it. The Vales had tried their best, but they'd failed. Through the galley curtain, she could see Tessa calmly reading her book again, though her posture suggested she remained alert to everything around her. Other passengers had relaxed, the atmosphere shifting from tense to merely awkward. Even Douglas Vale seemed to have lost interest, returning to his laptop with forced intensity. For the first time since the flight began, Alana felt hope. Not everyone was willing to watch silently when power was abused. Not everyone would pretend cruelty was acceptable just because it came wrapped in wealth and status. Grayson leaned back in his seat, his earlier confidence dented but not destroyed. He whispered something to his mother, his smirk returning as she nodded and patted his hand. Evelyn's eyes gleamed with calculation as she glanced toward the galley where Alana worked. The beverage cart moved through first class again, wheels humming softly against carpet. Alana's hands remained steady as she poured drinks, though tension crackled beneath the surface calm. Raphael's warning to the Vale family hung in the air like a fragile shield, already showing cracks. Grayson scrolled through his phone, apparently absorbed, but his posture radiated calculation. Evelyn sipped water with practiced elegance, watching Alana's every move. Douglas typed steadily on his laptop, pausing occasionally to exchange glances with his wife. "Coffee, sir?" Alana asked the businessman in 3B, careful to maintain the practiced warmth in her voice. He nodded, and she reached past Grayson's seat to serve the steaming cup. The attack came without warning. Fingers suddenly tangled in her hair, yanking backward with deliberate force. Alana's balance wavered, coffee sloshing dangerously close to the rim. Several passengers gasped. The grip released instantly, leaving ghost sensations of pain across her scalp. "She shoved me!" Grayson's voice filled the cabin, sharp with manufactured outrage. "Did everyone see that? She actually shoved me!" Evelyn Vale burst into action like an actress hitting her mark. She wrapped protective arms around her son, face contorted with maternal fury. "I saw it too. She deliberately pushed him while serving. This is completely unacceptable." "I did no such thing," Alana stated firmly, her grandmother's lessons in dignity steering her voice. "Mr. Vale grabbed my hair as I was serving the passenger behind him." "How dare you!" Evelyn's voice climbed higher. "My son would never—" "Douglas, are you getting this? We need this documented immediately." "She assaulted our boy." Douglas Vale's fingers flew across his laptop keyboard, his calm demeanor more threatening than his wife's theatrics. "Already handling it, dear. Just received confirmation from Martin in the executive office, and Charles from the board is standing by." He looked up at Alana, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. "They're very concerned about crew members who make physical contact with premium passengers." "That's an outright lie." Tessa Rowan's clear voice cut through the chaos. "I watched Mr. Vale grab her hair. It was entirely unprovoked, and frankly, it constitutes battery of a crew member." "With all due respect, ma'am," Douglas replied smoothly, "you couldn't possibly have had a clear view from your angle. And I have 3 witnesses right here who saw something quite different." Other passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A woman in row 4 half raised her hand, then lowered it, conflict evident on her face. The businessman who'd ordered coffee stared straight ahead, suddenly fascinated by his seatback screen. Raphael appeared at Alana's side, professional mask firmly in place. "I need to report this to the purser." "Ma'am, would you be willing to provide a statement about what you witnessed?" "Absolutely," Tessa replied. "I saw everything clearly, including the hair pull." "We'll be providing statements as well," Douglas announced. "And I've already notified several board members about this incident. I suspect there will be quite a few people waiting to speak with all parties when we land." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Security has been requested." Alana's stomach twisted. The word security transformed the entire situation from harassment into something that could destroy her career before it truly began. One accusation of passenger assault could end everything she'd worked for. "I'd like to file a formal complaint," Evelyn declared, still clutching Grayson as if he were a wounded child, rather than a grown man smirking behind his mother's protective embrace. This kind of aggressive behavior from staff cannot go unchallenged. The airline needs to know what kind of person they've hired. Other flight attendants hovered at the edges of first class now, drawn by the commotion but unsure how to help. The purser arrived, a worried crease between her brows as she took in the scene. "We'll document everything," she assured the Vales. "Security will meet us at the gate." Alana stood perfectly still, her uniform suddenly feeling too tight, too exposed. The evidence of what really happened lived only in the burning sensation across her scalp and the witnesses who might or might not speak up. Everything else was being rewritten in real time by money and influence. The seatbelt sign chimed as the plane began its initial descent. Passengers reluctantly returned to their seats, the air thick with discomfort. Douglas Vale leaned forward, his voice pitched low enough that only Alana could hear the controlled menace in his words. "By the time we land, you will wish you had stayed quiet." Alana kept her eyes straight ahead, focusing on her breathing, on her training, on her grandmother's wisdom about dignity. But beneath her composed exterior, reality settled like ice in her veins. This was no longer about humiliation or cruel entertainment. The Vales had transformed their attack into something that threatened everything she'd built. Outside the window, city lights began to appear through breaks in the clouds, each one marking another minute closer to a landing that felt more like a countdown to disaster. The plane's wheels touched down with a gentle bump, but Alana's heart hammered against her ribs. Around her, the familiar sounds of passengers prematurely unbuckling filled the cabin, accompanied by urgent whispers and sideways glances. "Please, remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until we reach the gate, and the sign turns off," she announced, her voice remarkably steady despite the tremors in her hands. Grayson Vale sprawled in his first-class seat, phone already out despite the rules, smirking as he typed. His mother dabbed non-existent tears with an embroidered handkerchief, while Douglas spoke quietly into his phone, breaking yet another regulation with casual disregard. "You did nothing wrong," Tessa Rowan said firmly from her seat. "I saw everything." The aircraft slowed, turning toward their assigned gate. Through the windows, Alana spotted 2 airport police vehicles waiting on the tarmac. Her stomach clenched. Raphael touched her arm lightly as he passed. "Stay strong. We'll tell them what really happened." The jet bridge connected with a soft thud. Before the seatbelt sign could even turn off, 2 airline supervisors in dark blazers rushed aboard, followed by airport police. Alana expected them to approach Grayson about assaulting crew. Instead, they made a beeline for her. "Ms. Brooks!" The older supervisor's tone was clipped. "We need you to come with us immediately." Evelyn Vale stood, her designer suit unwrinkled despite the 5-hour flight. "Officers, that's her, the one who pushed my son." Her voice carried perfectly, ensuring everyone heard. "We have multiple witnesses." "Ma'am, we'll take care of this right away," one of the police officers assured her. "Mr. Vale, are you all right?" Grayson clutched his shoulder, wincing dramatically. "I think she might have actually bruised me. I was just sitting here, and she came at me for no reason." "That's a lie." Raphael stepped forward. "He's been harassing her the entire flight. He grabbed her hair." "Sir, please step back," the second officer warned. "We'll take statements from everyone." Douglas Vale emerged from his seat, every inch the commanding corporate lawyer. "I've already spoken with Martin in the executive office. He's very concerned about this incident. Our family has been flying first class with this airline for 20 years without issue. Then this person decided to make things personal. This way, Ms. Brooks." The supervisor gripped Alana's elbow, steering her toward the exit while passengers stared. Some looked away uncomfortably. Others filmed on their phones. "I'm coming too," Tessa announced, gathering her belongings. "I'm a material witness, and I insist on providing my statement immediately." At the gate podium, a young supervisor named Owen Pierce watched the procession with visible discomfort. His eyes met Alana's briefly, then darted away. He'd been working during boarding when Grayson first started his performance. They led Alana to a small office near the gate. Inside, a third supervisor waited with incident forms and a stern expression. "Sit down, Ms. Brooks," We need to discuss your conduct today." "My conduct?" Alana's voice finally cracked. "I was assaulted by a passenger who spent the entire flight. Let's focus on the specific physical contact incident." The supervisor cut her off. "Nothing else is relevant right now. Just write what happened when you made contact with Mr. Vale during beverage service." "Everything else is absolutely relevant," Tessa interrupted sharply. She pulled out a business card. "I'm Tessa Rowan, former Federal Aviation Administration Compliance Officer. I witnessed systematic harassment of your crew member, followed by a deliberate assault when Mr. Vale grabbed her hair. I'll need to see the formal incident reporting protocols, please." The supervisor's expression flickered. "Ma'am, we have our procedures." "Yes, and I know them intimately," Tessa replied, "including the requirement to document all witness statements and any pattern of behavior that preceded a physical incident. I also know the regulations regarding passenger filming of crew without consent, which Mr. Vale did repeatedly." Outside the office, raised voices carried through the door. Raphael was insisting on providing his statement. Douglas Vale was demanding to speak to higher management. Evelyn's theatrical concerns about her traumatized son echoed down the corridor. Alana's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from a colleague included a social media link. Her hands shook as she opened it. There was Grayson's edited video already online, showing only the moment he claimed she pushed him. Comments poured in, many attacking her without knowing the full story. "We should wrap this up quickly," the supervisor pressed. "Just write what happened during the drink service incident, Ms. Brooks." "Nothing else?" "No." Alana straightened her spine, channeling her grandmother's strength. "I'm writing everything that happened, starting with Mr. Vale's behavior during boarding. I'll be providing my statement as well," Tessa added firmly. "And I strongly suggest you preserve all surveillance footage and crew communications from this flight immediately." The supervisor's phone rang. She answered, listened, then paled slightly. "Yes, sir. I understand Mr. Vale is on the board's priority contact list, but Ms. Rowan is insisting on full documentation." She covered the mouthpiece. "Would you be willing to accept an apology from the airline and move past this?" Before Alana could respond, another text lit up her phone. This one from an unknown number. "Ms. Brooks, I'm attorney Julia Pike. I specialize in aviation law and crew rights cases. A passenger sent me footage of your ordeal today. What happened to you was illegal on multiple levels. Please call me as soon as possible to discuss your options. Initial review suggests damages could exceed $7 million given the circumstances and witnesses." Sunlight streamed through Nina's kitchen window, falling across an untouched plate of toast and a cooling cup of coffee. Alana hadn't slept more than 2 hours, her uniform from yesterday still hanging on the bedroom door like a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. "First, let me be clear about something." Julia Pike's voice came clearly through the laptop speakers. "What happened wasn't just bad customer service or an entitled family being rude. This was targeted harassment with multiple legal implications." Nina sat beside Alana, her hand steady on her granddaughter's shoulder. The kitchen table was covered with printed screenshots, hastily scribbled notes, and Alana's detailed account of everything that had happened on the flight. "Tell me about the company's initial response again," Julia prompted, her professional demeanor somehow both comforting and intense through the video call. "They pulled me aside immediately after landing," Alana said, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "Tried to make me write a statement that only mentioned the moment Grayson claimed I pushed him. They didn't want any record of what came before." "Of course they didn't." Julia's pen scratched against paper off-screen. "And this Douglas Vale? He mentioned being on some kind of priority contact list?" "Yes. He was making calls during the flight, which isn't even allowed. Then at the gate, everyone just jumped to protect them, like it was automatic." Nina squeezed her shoulder. "Tell her about the video, baby." Alana pulled up Grayson's edited social media post on her phone. He posted this last night. It only shows the second when he jerked back in his seat, making it look like I actually pushed him. The comments are... She swallowed hard. Don't read those, Julia said firmly. What matters is we have witnesses who saw the full pattern of harassment. This edited video actually helps us. It shows premeditation. They're trying to control the narrative, which means they know they're vulnerable. But what about my job? Alana's voice cracked. I have a meeting at headquarters this afternoon. I can't lose this position. I worked so hard to get here. Listen carefully. Julia leaned closer to her camera. If they take any retaliatory action against you for reporting passenger abuse, that adds another major claim to our case. Racial discrimination, workplace harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and that's before we get to the corporate liability angle. Nina straightened in her chair. What do you mean, racial discrimination? They didn't say anything directly about... They didn't have to, Julia explained. The pattern of behavior, the public humiliation, the immediate assumption of guilt, we can demonstrate selective enforcement. I guarantee you they don't treat all crew complaints this way. We just need to document everything. Alana's phone buzzed with a text from Raphael. Management asking questions about yesterday. Trying to make it sound routine. Don't trust them. The morning crawled by in a haze of anxiety. At 2 o'clock, Alana sat in a sterile conference room at airline headquarters, facing 3 management representatives who wouldn't quite meet her eyes. Given the serious nature of the allegations, the HR director said carefully, we're placing you on administrative leave while we conduct our review. This is standard procedure. Standard procedure? Alana kept her voice level, remembering Julia's advice to stay professional but firm. Is it standard procedure when passengers film crew without consent? When they physically grab us? When they make false accusations? Ms. Brooks, another manager cut in, we have to consider all perspectives. The Vale family has been very clear about their version of events. Their version isn't the truth. Nevertheless, until we complete our investigation, we need you to turn in your crew ID and refrain from discussing this matter with anyone, including other employees. Alana's hands shook slightly as she removed her airline identification. Everything she'd worked for, slipping away because a wealthy family decided to treat her like their entertainment. The drive home felt endless. Every traffic light gave her time to replay moments from the flight. Grayson's smirk, Evelyn's theatrical performance, Douglas's quiet threats. By the time she walked through Nina's door, her eyes burned with exhaustion and frustration. They put me on leave, she said, dropping onto the couch. Just like that. Like I'm the problem. Nina sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Baby, listen to me. People who laugh at hurting others. They get scared when everything gets written down. When there are witnesses. When their ugly behavior gets preserved where they can't edit it away. But what if they win? What if I lose everything I've worked for? You haven't lost anything yet, Nina said firmly. And those people, they're used to everyone backing down. Used to their money making problems disappear. But money can't erase what really happened. Alana's phone lit up with an email from Julia. More witnesses coming forward. Second passenger has additional footage. Tessa Rowan documenting everything from her regulatory background perspective. Need to move quickly on statements before Vale family applies pressure. Can you come to my office first thing tomorrow? Alana jerked awake on Nina's couch, her phone vibrating against her chest where she'd dozed off. The living room had grown dark, streetlights casting long shadows through the curtains. Her screen blazed with notifications, dozens of them, stacked like accusations. Oh, Lord, she whispered, sitting up straight as her heart began to race. A new video clip had surfaced, barely 15 seconds long. In it, Grayson appeared innocent and startled while Alana's face looked harsh under the cabin lighting. The clip started mid-interaction, cutting out everything that came before. Comments flooded in beneath it. Who hired this person? Another employee trying to get rich quick. Clearly unprofessional. Vale family are respected donors. She's just jealous. Her hands trembled as she scrolled. A gossip account with hundreds of thousands of followers had picked up the story. Prominent family harassed, aviation heir Grayson Vale, target of vindictive employee. The article painted Grayson as a bright young student from a philanthropic family, describing Alana as aggressive and confrontational. "They're trying to bury me," she said into the quiet room. Nina emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Let me see that." She sat down, adjusting her reading glasses as Alana handed over the phone. Her expression hardened. These people have some nerve. Alana's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Julia Pike. "I've seen it," Julia said before Alana could speak. "We expected this. The Vales are doing exactly what privileged people do when they're scared, trying to control the narrative through their connections. There are hundreds of comments already. Ignore them. I've just sent a preservation notice to the airline's legal department. They're required to maintain all records now. Security footage, communications, crew reports, everything. If they destroy anything, it strengthens our case." Alana rubbed her temples. "What about the other passengers? The ones who saw everything?" Tessa Rowan already sent over her notes. She's documented every interaction with timestamps, flight numbers, seat assignments. She's methodical. Exactly what we need. Another call beeped through. Raphael. Alana switched over. "Hey!" Raphael's voice was hushed. "Are you seeing all this?" "Yeah. You okay?" Management called an emergency crew meeting. They didn't say it directly, but the message was clear. Be careful what you say about the incident. They're framing it like they're protecting us from getting involved in a complicated situation. Alana's stomach tightened. Are people believing that? Some are scared, but others remember similar incidents. The Vales aren't the first rich passengers to act like this, just the most blatant. He paused. "I'm with you on this, okay? Whatever happens." After hanging up, Alana noticed a missed call from Owen Pierce's number. When she tried calling back, it went straight to voicemail. Her text stayed unread. Tessa's email arrived next, detailed and devastating in its precision. 12:17 p.m. First instance of passenger GV recording crew without consent. 12:19 p.m. Passenger EV makes discriminatory comment about standards slipping. 12:24 p.m. GV. Deliberately spills beverage, falsely blames crew. 12:38 p.m. DV observed making unauthorized phone calls during flight. 12:45 p.m. Physical contact incident. GV clearly initiates. The list went on, each entry methodically destroying the family's edited version of events. Tessa had even noted which other passengers were in position to witness each incident. Nina read over Alana's shoulder. This woman doesn't miss a thing, does she? She used to work in aviation regulation. Julia says her testimony will be crucial. More notifications poured in. The Vale family had given a brief statement to a local news station expressing concern about the declining quality of air travel and disappointment in how their son was treated. Douglas Vale was quoted as a respected aviation industry investor. They're not just cruel, Alana said quietly. They're organized. They planned for this. Of course they did, Nina replied. People like that, they count on their targets feeling overwhelmed and alone. They use their money to make the truth disappear. But why me? Why that flight? Because you didn't break when they wanted you to. Because you stayed professional when they tried to humiliate you. Nothing makes bullies angrier than someone who won't give them the reaction they want. Alana's phone lit up with another email from Julia. This one marked urgent. The subject line read, "Draft complaint. Review ASAP." The document laid out their case in stark legal language. Racial discrimination, harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, corporate negligence. The damages sought, $7 million. Julia's note was brief. "Unless the airline suddenly develops a conscience, we're filing this within days. They need to understand. We're not asking for justice. We're demanding it." Alana stared at the number. $7 million. The Vales probably spent that much on vacations each year. But this wasn't about money. This was about truth, about dignity, about making sure they couldn't simply erase what they'd done. She thought of Owen's missed call, of Raphael's quiet solidarity, of Tessa's meticulous notes. She wasn't as alone as they wanted her to feel. Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "You ready for this fight?" "They started it," Alana said. "But I'm going to finish it." The glass doors of Pike Legal Services reflected the morning sun as Alana pushed through them. Her reflection showed dark circles under her eyes, but her posture remained straight, her uniform replaced by a crisp blue blazer. The receptionist guided her directly to Julia's corner office, where the attorney stood reviewing documents spread across a massive desk. "You look like you haven't slept," Julia said, gesturing to a chair. "The comments keep coming. Every time I close my eyes, I see more notifications. Delete the social media apps for now. We need you focused here." Julia tapped a thick document. "This is our complaint. I want to walk through every detail so we're absolutely clear on the sequence." For the next hour, they dissected each paragraph. Julia's precision helped transform Alana's raw memories into ordered facts. Times, locations, witnesses, specific words spoken. The legal language gave structure to chaos. "See how we're establishing the pattern?" Julia pointed to a section. It wasn't just random cruelty. They escalated methodically, from subtle disrespect to open mockery to false accusations. That shows premeditation. A knock interrupted them. Tessa Rowan entered, carrying a leather portfolio and looking exactly as composed as she had on the flight. "Thank you for coming in person," Julia said, offering her a seat. "Of course." Tessa opened her portfolio. "I've organized my observations chronologically. Shall we begin?" Her account was devastating in its detail. She described how Grayson had tested boundaries early, watching crew reactions before escalating. He'd make a small demand, then watch Alana's face, Tessa explained. When she stayed professional, he'd push further. His mother would smile each time, sometimes whispering suggestions. It was like watching a performance they'd rehearsed. "You mentioned Evelyn Vale's participation specifically," Julia prompted. "Oh, yes. She was essential to the dynamic. She'd rephrase Grayson's crude comments into something more polished, but equally cruel. When he said, 'Get over here,' she'd add, 'We seem to be having trouble with attention to detail.' She made his bullying sound sophisticated." Alana's hands tightened in her lap. "And Mr. Vale?" "Douglas was the strategic one. He stayed quiet until the accusation, but I saw him making calls earlier. He'd mentioned specific names, executives, board members. It wasn't random threatening. He knew exactly who to pressure." Julia took rapid notes. "Tell me about the complaint handling after landing. That's where they really violated procedure." Tessa's tone sharpened. "I worked in federal aviation compliance for 20 years. There are specific protocols for passenger crew incidents. They ignored almost all of them. No separate interviews. No proper documentation. They focused entirely on appeasing the Vales while isolating Alana." A text buzzed on Alana's phone. "Raphael, sending you my statement now. Be careful with it, but I'm done staying quiet." Julia opened the email on her computer. Raphael's account corroborated everything: the systematic harassment, the deliberate provocations, the shift to false allegations. He even noted similar past incidents that had been quietly buried. "This helps enormously," Julia said. "A senior crew member confirming the pattern carries weight." Another text arrived, this one from Owen. "I saw something at the gate before boarding. They were already targeting her. Scared to say more right now, but can't sleep knowing what I know." "Even better," Julia said. Pre-flight evidence suggests even clearer premeditation. Alana stared at Owen's message. He's terrified of losing his job. "They all are," Tessa said. "That's how this system works. Power protects power by making everyone else fear consequences." "But the evidence is building," Julia pointed out. "Look at what we have. Multiple witnesses, documentation of procedure violations, a pattern of escalation, proof of corporate protection of abusive passengers. This isn't just your word against theirs anymore." She pulled up a timeline on her screen, adding each piece of evidence chronologically. The pattern emerged clearly: Grayson's filmed provocations, Evelyn's subtle encouragement, Douglas's strategic threats, the coordinated shift to false accusations, the procedural violations in handling the complaint, the immediate online smear campaign. "See how it forms a chain?" Julia asked. "Each piece supports the others. Their careful public image starts to crack when you lay out the full sequence." For the first time since the flight, Alana felt the fog of helplessness lifting. The truth wasn't scattered anymore. It had shape, weight, witnesses. "What happens next?" she asked. "I'm submitting this for final review today," Julia said, patting the complaint. "The senior partners will check every detail, every citation, every cause of action. We need this airtight before filing." Tessa gathered her notes. "I'll be available whenever you need additional testimony. Some things need to change in this industry. Maybe this case can help make that happen." As the afternoon light faded, Julia made final adjustments to the document. "Tomorrow could change everything," she said, hitting save. "Are you ready?" Alana looked at the evidence spread across the desk: photos, statements, timestamps, procedure manuals. The truth assembled piece by piece. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." Sunlight streamed through Nina's living room windows as Alana and her grandmother sat on the worn floral couch, their eyes fixed on the morning news. Coffee cups cooled untouched on the side table, while Julia's press conference played on the screen. "The complaint we filed today details systematic harassment, discrimination, and retaliation," Julia stated from behind a podium bristling with microphones. "This case isn't just about one flight. It's about accountability when wealth and privilege are used as weapons." Nina squeezed Alana's hand as reporters shouted questions. The lawsuit documents appeared in graphics beside Julia's image. $7 million in damages, multiple causes of action, demands for policy changes. "Look at her go," Nina said proudly. "Cool as ice, laying out every bit of it." Alana's phone buzzed with messages from Raphael and other crew members. The story was spreading through airline channels, breaking the imposed silence. Local news crews had already stationed themselves outside the Vail residence and airline headquarters. By mid-morning, social media exploded with a new video. A passenger seated behind the veils had captured nearly 15 minutes of continuous footage. The unedited sequence showed Grayson's deliberate escalation. The finger-snapping, the mocking comments, the phone recordings, all while his parents exchanged knowing smiles. "That's exactly how it happened," Alana said, watching herself maintain composure on screen while Grayson performed his casual cruelty. "Every single moment." News anchors began dissecting the footage. "The question here isn't just about one family's behavior," a commentator noted. "Why did airline management leave a new employee unprotected against documented harassment? Where were the systems meant to prevent this?" The airline's PR team scrambled to respond, issuing a carefully worded statement. "We take these allegations seriously and have initiated an independent review of all relevant policies and procedures." Independent review, Nina scoffed. Now they want to look concerned. More passengers from the flight contacted Julia's office. A business traveler described overhearing Douglas Vale's phone calls to airline executives. A flight attendant from another crew came forward about a previous incident with the family that had been buried by management. Around 2 o'clock, Julia called. "Owen Pierce just left my office," she said. "He finally found his courage." "What did he say?" Alana sat forward. "He was working the gate before boarding. He heard Douglas Vale telling someone on the phone that airline crew were paid to obey, not be respected. Owen says Grayson was already filming staff and making comments about training the help properly before they even got on the plane. So they planned this from the start," Alana said. "Exactly. Owen's testimony proves premeditation. They targeted you deliberately, not in some spontaneous moment." The afternoon brought more shifts. Grayson's private school issued a statement reviewing his ongoing enrollment. Several charity boards distanced themselves from Evelyn. Douglas's law firm removed his profile from their website pending internal discussion. Social circles that had amplified the family's initial denials now went quiet. Photos vanished from society pages. Party invitations disappeared. Money could buy many things, but it couldn't completely outrun viral video evidence of calculated cruelty. By early evening, 3 major networks had picked up the story. Reporters dug into Douglas Vale's history of using legal threats to bury complaints. Aviation blogs analyzed the airline's pattern of protecting high-status passengers at crew members' expense. "Look at this," Nina said, scrolling through comments. "People are sharing their own stories of passenger abuse. You've opened a door nobody could break through before." Alana watched the coverage with mixed emotions. The validation felt powerful, but she also saw how many others had faced similar treatment without finding justice. Their messages filled her inbox. Other crew members, service workers, people who had swallowed humiliation because they couldn't afford to fight back. "This was never just about me," she realized aloud. "No, baby," Nina agreed. "It's about every person who ever had to smile while someone powerful tried to break their spirit." Julia called again as night fell. "The airline's lawyers are getting nervous," she reported. "They know we're close to forcing disclosure of internal communications, emails, complaint records, everything they tried to hide. Once those records become public evidence, the whole system gets exposed," Alana finished. "Exactly. Not just the Vales' behavior, but the corporate culture that protected them. Every buried complaint, every instance of retaliation, every executive who chose profit over people." Through the window, Alana could see news vans still parked along the street. Their lights illuminated neighbors gathering on porches, watching this small house become the center of a story about power, dignity, and consequence. "How are you holding up?" Julia asked. Alana looked at Nina, who nodded encouragement. "I'm tired," she admitted, "but I'm not afraid anymore. They wanted to make an example of me. They just didn't expect the example to work in reverse." "Get some rest," Julia advised. "Tomorrow we start pushing for those internal records. The truth is already running faster than their money can chase it." After hanging up, Alana sat with Nina in the growing darkness, watching the news cycle churn. Her grandmother's words from that first morning echoed back. Grace was strength, dignity was power, and truth, once unleashed, had its own momentum. Alana's phone buzzed before sunrise, Julia's name lighting up the screen. She answered, still groggy from a restless night. "Turn on your TV," Julia said, without preamble. "Channel 4. Alana fumbled for the remote, her stomach already tightening. The morning news showed Douglas Vail standing outside his law firm, perfectly composed in an expensive suit. A leaked settlement memo filled the screen beside him. Certain phrases highlighted immediate financial compensation and prior to public disclosure. "They're twisting everything," Julia explained, her voice tight with controlled anger. "They leaked an early draft discussion and edited it to make it look like you demanded money to stay quiet." Alana watched in disbelief as Douglas spoke with practiced concern. "We simply want the truth to emerge," he said smoothly. "This young woman's attempts to extract payment before making accusations speak for themselves." The story spread like poison through social media. Carefully selected screenshots circulated without context. Commenters who had supported Alana yesterday now questioned her motives. The Vail's PR machine worked with devastating efficiency. Nina emerged from her bedroom, took one look at the television, and went straight to make coffee. "They're scared," she said firmly. "Desperate people fight dirty." But the hits kept coming. Mid-morning, Evelyn and Grayson appeared on a popular talk show. Evelyn dabbed at her eyes with an expensive handkerchief, while Grayson played the role of wounded youth perfectly. "We tried to be kind," Evelyn said, her voice breaking just enough. "We had no idea she would twist a simple misunderstanding into such allegations. The emotional toll on my son." Grayson lowered his head, the picture of manufactured remorse. "I just wish she'd talk to us directly, instead of trying to hurt my family this way." The performance was masterful. Comment sections filled with people defending the poor boy against a vindictive employee. The carefully crafted narrative painted Alana as an opportunist targeting a prominent family. By lunch, the damage deepened. A passenger who had initially supported Alana's version suddenly recanted, claiming memory confusion. Julia confirmed the airline's legal team had been in contact with the witness just hours before. "They're pressuring everyone," Raphael told Alana in a hurried call. "Management is reviewing crew schedules, suggesting certain assignments might depend on team loyalty. I'm so sorry, but people are scared." Then the final blow landed. A courier delivered a letter from the airline's HR department. In careful corporate language, it cited multiple performance concerns during Alana's probationary period and terminated her employment effectively immediately. "This is textbook retaliation," Julia assured her. "We'll add it to the complaint." But they know it hurts me now," Alana finished. "They know I needed this job." She sat in Nina's kitchen, staring at the termination letter. All her training, her perfect evaluations, her dreams of building a career, erased by corporate machinery protecting the powerful. The unfairness of it burned in her chest. The afternoon brought more orchestrated pressure. Aviation blogs quoted anonymous sources questioning Alana's professionalism. Social media influencers shared the Vail's interview with sympathetic hashtags. Each hour brought new waves of doubt and criticism. Douglas appeared on Business News, presenting himself as a concerned father, protecting his family's reputation. "We remain open to dialogue," he said with practiced sincerity, "but we cannot allow false narratives to go unchallenged." Even Julia sounded strained by evening. "They're flooding every channel with their version," she admitted. "We need to be strategic about our next moves." Alana sat with Nina at dinner, pushing food around her plate. The weight of the day finally broke her careful composure. Tears fell onto the tablecloth as everything spilled out. Her lost job, the public attacks, the feeling of drowning under the Vail's influence. Nina didn't offer empty comfort. She let Alana cry, passing tissues in silence until the storm passed. Then she spoke with quiet steel in her voice. "You listen to me now," she said. "Those people think money equals truth. They think they can buy reality and sell it back to us changed. But baby, Some things can't be bought. Dignity, justice, truth. She gripped Alana's hand. You're not fighting for a job anymore. You're fighting for every person who ever had to swallow a lie because they couldn't afford truth. I don't know if I'm strong enough, Alana whispered. You're stronger than they can imagine, Nina replied. That's why they're throwing everything at you. Lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. As midnight approached, Alana sat in her bedroom reviewing the day's damage. Her phone lit up with a message from Tessa Rowan. It was brief, just 7 words. Found something in timeline. Douglas won't survive this. Morning light filtered through the hotel lounge windows as Alana and Julia settled into plush chairs across from Tessa Rowan. The elegant space felt worlds away from yesterday's public humiliation, but tension hung thick in the air. Tessa pulled out a leather-bound notebook and opened her laptop. I've spent my career investigating aviation incidents, she explained. Old habits die hard. I document everything. She turned the notebook toward them. Each page contained precise timestamps, names, and observations written in neat, methodical script. The Vales thought no one was watching the mechanics of their influence. That was their mistake. Julia leaned forward, scanning the entries. This is incredibly detailed. Watch this, Tessa said, pulling up her email. At 2:47 p.m., while we were still in flight, Douglas Vale accessed the plane's Wi-Fi. I noted it because he made a show of name-dropping while typing. Cross-reference that with this. She displayed an email thread showing internal airline communications. Through public records requests from my regulatory days, I tracked the timestamp. Vale messaged William Garrett, Senior VP of Customer Relations, before we even landed. That's not just a customer complaint, Julia said, her eyes sharpening. That's coordinated pressure from the start. Exactly. Tessa scrolled through more records. Then, at 3:22 p.m., immediately after landing, Vale made 3 calls in succession, all to airline executives. I documented each one because his voice carried in the jet bridge. He wasn't asking for help. He was directing a response. Alana watched Julia's expression change as the implications sank in. This isn't just about wealth-buying influence, the attorney said. This is about systematic abuse of process. There's more. Tessa produced a timeline matrix. I mapped every interaction after we deplaned. Security didn't randomly appear. They were specifically instructed to treat the Vales as the victims. Management didn't naturally favor their story. They were ordered to contain the situation. The whole response was orchestrated. Julia began taking rapid notes. This transforms the narrative from isolated harassment to corporate conspiracy. They didn't just fail to protect Alana, they actively participated in attacking her. Alana's phone buzzed. A text from Owen. Can you meet? Found something big. 20 minutes later, Owen slipped into the lounge, nervously checking over his shoulder. His hands shook slightly as he pulled out his phone. I almost deleted this when everything started, he said, pulling up his voicemail. But after seeing what they did to you, he hit play. A supervisor's voice filled the air. Attention gate staff. The Vale family is confirmed for today's flight. These are premium-tier customers with direct board connections. Protect the Vale account at all costs. Any issues, you escalate to management immediately. Their satisfaction is priority 1. Protect the Vale account at all costs, Julia repeated, her voice hardening. Not protect our employees. Not follow procedure. Protect the wealthy family at all costs. There's similar messages for other elite passengers, Owen added quietly. It's policy. Money matters more than people. Alana sat back, watching the pieces align. The family's cruelty wasn't just enabled by wealth. It was enforced by a system designed to protect their privilege. Every humiliation, every lie, every attack was backed by corporate machinery. "This changes everything," Julia said, spreading documents across the table. "We're not just fighting entitled passengers who abused a flight attendant. We're exposing an entire framework of institutional protection for wealthy abusers." Tessa nodded. The Vales thought money would bury the truth. But money left a trail. Every call, every order, every deviation from protocol. It's all documented. They created their own evidence by trying to control the system. "We can prove the airline knew about the harassment in real time," Julia continued, energy building in her voice. "We can show they chose to protect the Vales instead of investigating. We can demonstrate that Alana's termination was part of a larger pattern of protecting wealthy customers by sacrificing staff." Owen shifted uncomfortably. "They'll come after anyone who speaks up." "Let them," Tessa said calmly. "I've spent 30 years handling corporate intimidation. The harder they fight, the more they'll prove our point." Alana studied the evidence building on the table. Tessa's meticulous notes, Owen's damning voicemail, the documented timeline of Douglas's interference. For the first time since losing her job, she felt something beyond raw emotion. This was calculated hope, built on facts they couldn't deny and patterns they couldn't hide. "They thought wealth meant they could rewrite reality," she said quietly, "but they left fingerprints everywhere they touched." Julia began organizing documents into sections. "I'm amending the complaint immediately. This isn't just about what happened on that flight anymore. This is about exposing how money corrupts accountability. The Vales aren't just wealthy passengers who behaved badly. They're the visible face of systematic discrimination." "And the airline?" Alana asked. "They chose to protect abusers because of wealth and influence," Julia replied. "We're going to prove that choice was both deliberate and destructive. This isn't just your story anymore, Alana. This is about dismantling a system that tells rich people they can hurt others without consequences." Tessa closed her notebook with firm finality. "They thought money would be their shield. Instead, it's becoming their spotlight." Julia's office hummed with focused energy as she worked through the night, filing motion after motion. Computer screens glowed with drafted documents while scattered papers covered every surface. By dawn, a new legal offensive was unleashed. The airline's legal department received the first wave of demands before their morning coffee grew cold. Julia's motions hit like precision strikes, requests for internal emails, communication logs, complaint records, and staff instructions regarding premium passenger protocols. The casual arrogance that had protected the Vales began to crack under professional pressure. "We need those Vale-related communications by end of day," Julia informed the airline's attorneys, her voice carrying the weight of Tessa's evidence. "Every email, every note, every decision about handling this incident." Mid-level executives, sensing danger, started choosing self-preservation over loyalty to Douglas. An assistant vice president discovered relevant emails in his archived folders. A customer relations manager suddenly remembered detailed notes from conversations with Douglas. The wall of protection around the Vales developed hairline fractures. By mid-morning, a damaging email chain emerged. Subject line: "Premium client exposure. Urgent response needed. Must contain negative press around Vale incident," one executive wrote. "Focus on new hire performance issues rather than passenger conduct." Another replied, "Priority is protecting premium relationships. HR can handle the employee situation quietly." Not one message mentioned investigating Alana's harassment report. Not one questioned Grayson's behavior. The entire discussion centered on protecting wealthy clients and silencing staff complaints. Raphael, watching the company's unified front crumble, finally stepped fully forward. He met with Julia for 3 hours, detailing not just the flight incident, but the broader culture of privilege. "Management told us directly, premium passengers are always right. Raphael explained, his voice heavy with accumulated frustration. After Alana filed her complaint, supervisors pulled Cruz aside. They said supporting her would be unwise for our careers. News coverage shifted dramatically. What started as passenger said versus crew said evolved into detailed exposés of corporate favoritism. Reporters dug into patterns of complaint handling, discovering stark differences between how the airline treated wealthy versus regular customers. Internal documents reveal systematic bias in passenger dispute resolution, one headline declared. Race and class shaped airlines' response to crew harassment. The morning shows picked up the story. This isn't about one flight, a commentator noted. This is about institutions protecting privilege at the expense of basic dignity. Douglas Vail's carefully constructed narrative began unraveling. His usual tactics, calling in favors, applying pressure, making threats, suddenly felt obvious and crude under public scrutiny. Each attempt to assert control only highlighted the system of influence he had exploited. Evelyn's media appearances, once smooth and convincing, started showing strain. Her practiced lines about misunderstanding and overreaction rang hollow against the documented evidence. "We simply expected professional service," she told one interviewer, maintaining her polished smile. "But emails show your husband contacted executives before landing," the reporter countered. "Why involve senior management before any investigation?" Evelyn's composure flickered. "We have certain expectations when we travel." "Based on wealth and status?" the reporter pressed. The camera caught her mask slipping. Grayson, who had treated the whole incident like entertainment, found himself truly exposed for the first time. Full videos of his behavior circulated beyond controlled social media circles. Professional commentators analyzed his actions. Corporate culture experts cited him as an example of enabled toxicity. His carefully curated online presence, built on making others uncomfortable for laughs, backfired as people connected patterns of cruelty. Old clips resurfaced, showing similar incidents. Servers mocked, retail workers filmed, staff humiliated for his amusement. What once passed as wealthy kid antics now looked like documented harassment. "Watch his body language," a body language expert noted on air, analyzing flight footage. "The smirking, the performative dominance. This is practiced behavior. He's been taught this is acceptable." By late afternoon, Julia's phone rang constantly. Reporters wanted comments. Witnesses offered statements. Former airline employees shared similar stories. The pressure built steadily, methodically, professionally. Alana watched from Julia's office as the strategy unfolded. This wasn't just legal maneuvering, it was systematic exposure of how wealth corrupted accountability. Every new document, every revealed email, every witness statement reinforced the larger truth. Her humiliation had been enabled by an entire system designed to protect privileged abuse. As evening approached, Julia gathered her team for an update. "The airline's attorneys have been making informal contact," she reported. "They're floating the idea of settlement discussions." "Are they serious?" Alana asked. "They're scared," Julia replied. "The evidence trail is worse than they expected. Douglas's influence is becoming a liability rather than protection. They want to contain the damage." "What kind of settlement?" "That's the real question," Julia said, spreading out new documents. "They'll offer money, but we need more. Public acknowledgement, policy changes, real consequences for the Vails. Breaking the cycle matters more than the dollar amount." Morning sunlight glinted off the courthouse's stone facade as journalists clustered near the entrance. Camera crews jostled for position while reporters checked microphones and earpieces. The air crackled with anticipation. Alana stood quietly beside Nina and Julia, watching the Vails approach through a gauntlet of press. Douglas moved with forced confidence, but his usual commanding presence felt hollow. Evelyn's designer outfit and practiced smile couldn't mask her unease. Their lawyer team surrounded them like a protective wall. "Remember," Julia whispered to Alana, "let the evidence speak for itself." Inside the courtroom, Julia methodically laid out the timeline. She projected email timestamps against flight records, showing Douglas's messages to airline executives while still in the air. His face tightened as she highlighted key phrases about handling the situation and maintaining relationships. "Your Honor," Julia said, "this demonstrates coordinated retaliation before any investigation occurred." Mr. Vale leveraged his connections to punish Ms. Brooks for enduring his son's documented harassment. The judge studied the communication logs with narrowed eyes. "Mr. Vale, explain these contacts with airline management before landing." Douglas shifted in his seat. "As a frequent premier passenger—" "That's not what I asked," the judge cut in. "Why were you messaging executives about an employee before any formal complaint was filed?" His usual commanding tone faltered. "I was concerned about unprofessional service." "Yet video evidence shows your son deliberately provoking the flight attendant while you watched," the judge noted. "Are premier passengers exempt from basic conduct standards?" Outside during recess, reporters surrounded Evelyn. Her carefully maintained composure cracked under rapid-fire questions. "Mrs. Vale, why did you laugh while your son humiliated a crew member?" one reporter pressed. "You're mischaracterizing," Evelyn started. "Multiple witnesses confirmed you found it amusing. Do you normally enjoy watching working women being degraded?" "This is absurd," she snapped, her polished facade slipping. "We were simply—" "The videos show you encouraging his behavior. Was this normal family entertainment for you?" Tessa's testimony proved devastating in its precision. She cited specific timestamps, quoted exact dialogue, and referenced her regulatory background to highlight procedural violations. Her calm expertise made the Vale's denials sound increasingly desperate. At 2:17 p.m. Eastern, Mr. Vale's son deliberately spilled his drink and blamed Ms. Brooks, Tessa stated. At 2:19, Mrs. Vale commented that some people need to learn their place. At 2:20, their son began filming the harassment while his parents watched approvingly. The airline's attorneys squirmed as Tessa detailed how complaint procedures were ignored to protect wealthy passengers. Her testimony transformed individual cruelty into systematic failure. Owen's recorded voicemail echoed through the courtroom. "Protect the Vale account at all costs. If the new hire keeps complaining, we know how to handle problem employees." The young supervisor's hands shook as he authenticated the recording, but his voice stayed steady. "We were told premier passengers could basically do what they wanted. Their comfort mattered more than our dignity." Alana maintained composed silence through it all, letting the evidence speak. Her disciplined demeanor contrasted sharply with Grayson's documented mockery and his parents' enabling behavior. When asked for comment, she simply directed attention to the facts. By early afternoon, whispers spread through the courthouse. The airline's legal team huddled in corners, making urgent calls. Douglas's influence, once so confidently wielded, had become toxic. Every attempt to justify their actions only highlighted the pattern of privileged abuse. The judge's pointed questions left no doubt about the court's view of the evidence. "This appears to be a textbook case of coordinated retaliation enabled by corporate policy," she observed. "The timeline suggests deliberate effort to punish an employee for enduring documented harassment." Reporters tracked the Vale family's increasingly tense exits and entrances. Grayson's smirk had vanished, replaced by nervous glances at his phone. Evelyn's answers grew shorter and sharper. Douglas kept checking messages, his face darkening with each update. The airline's representatives looked increasingly uncomfortable as more internal communications emerged. Emails revealed executives discussing how to manage the optics while ignoring the actual harassment. Meeting notes showed concern about premium passenger relationships, but no mention of crew safety. By late afternoon, the momentum had shifted completely. The Vales were no longer directing events, but reacting to them. Their carefully constructed narrative had crumbled under the weight of documented truth. As evening approached, Julia received urgent messages from the airline's legal team. The tone had changed from defensive posturing to damage control. They wanted to talk terms immediately. The courthouse emptied as darkness fell. Camera crews packed up, but reporters lingered, sensing the story wasn't finished. Through the window of a nearby coffee shop, observers could see Julia in intense discussion with airline representatives, stacks of papers spread across the table. At 9:47 p.m., Julia's car pulled up outside Nina's modest house. Alana and her grandmother were waiting in the warm kitchen, hands wrapped around cooling mugs of tea. Julia entered with a thick folder and an expression of contained satisfaction. "They're ready to settle," she announced, laying out documents on Nina's worn kitchen table. $7 million, formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and significant travel restrictions for the entire Vale family. Nina's kitchen light cast a warm glow over the scattered papers. The wall clock ticked past midnight as Julia meticulously walked them through each clause of the settlement offer. Alana leaned forward, her finger tracing each line while Nina kept the coffee flowing. $7 million is just the starting point, Julia explained, highlighting key sections. But I need you to understand every detail before we move forward. Alana shook her head at one paragraph. This language about mutual understanding, it sounds like they're trying to blur what really happened. Good catch, Julia nodded. We'll demand clearer wording about harassment and discrimination. Nina squeezed her granddaughter's shoulder. Don't let them hide their shame behind lawyer words. They worked through the night, dissecting every term. When they reached the section about confidentiality, Alana's expression hardened. No, she pushed the paper away. I won't sign anything that keeps this quiet. Other crew members need to know they can fight back. Julia smiled. I expected you'd say that. Here's our counterproposal. Full public disclosure, mandatory policy changes, and explicit acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Dawn was breaking when they finished their first review. Empty coffee cups littered the table, and Nina's usually immaculate kitchen showed signs of their all-night session. But Alana's mind was clear. We need 3 things, she stated firmly. Public accountability, real protection for other crew members, and language that tells the truth about what they did. Julia began making calls as soon as business hours started. The airline's lawyers pushed back initially, but public pressure was mounting. News vans remained camped outside the courthouse, and social media was flooded with clips of Grayson's behavior and his parents' enabling responses. By mid-morning, airline executives were scrambling. Their stock was dropping as investors questioned the company's handling of harassment claims. Partner airlines expressed concerns about reputation damage. The Vales' influence, once so formidable, had become a liability. They're caving, Julia announced at 10:45 a.m. They'll accept our terms with minor adjustments. The final agreement took shape over the next 2 hours. $7 million would be paid in full, with no confidentiality restrictions. The airline would implement mandatory anti-harassment training and new crew protection policies. Most importantly, they would issue a public statement acknowledging their failure to protect Alana and their mishandling of her complaint. The travel ban hit the Vales hardest. Not just one airline, but multiple carriers agreed to restrict their access. Their precious first-class privileges evaporated. Grayson's casual cruelty had cost his family the very status they'd weaponized against Alana. Douglas's professional fall came swiftly. His law firm's executive committee called an emergency meeting as evidence of his collusion with airline officials became public. By noon, his biography had vanished from the firm's website. His carefully cultivated reputation for corporate influence crumbled under scrutiny. Evelyn's social circle proved equally unforgiving. The Children's Hospital Charity Board she chaired called a special session. Her attempts to dismiss the incident as a misunderstanding fell flat when confronted with video evidence of her encouraging her son's harassment. Her resignation was announced in a terse press release. Grayson's social media accounts, once filled with smug posts about privilege, went dark. His own recorded words and actions became inescapable evidence of his character. Former friends and classmates distanced themselves, leaving comments about finally seeing his true nature. The settlement signing occurred at 2 p.m. Alana sat straight-backed at the conference table, Nina beside her, as airline executives and Vale family lawyers filed in. The contrast was stark, her quiet dignity against their obvious discomfort. News alerts began pinging across phones nationwide by 3 p.m. Headlines flashed across screens in airports, offices, and homes. Airline admits wrongdoing, pays $7 million to harassed flight attendant. Wealthy family banned from major airlines after harassment settlement. Corporate lawyer loses position after flight harassment scandal. Victory for airline workers. New anti-harassment policies announced. In airport terminals across the country, crew members gathered around phones and tablets, sharing the news. The family that had treated harassment like entertainment was grounded. Their privilege had become their prison. Raphael sent Alana a photo of flight attendants celebrating in the crew lounge. Owen messaged his congratulations, saying her courage had changed things for everyone. Tessa called to express satisfaction that truth had prevailed over influence. The afternoon news cycles led with the settlement amount, but the real story was in the details. Every major outlet highlighted the policy changes, the travel restrictions, and most importantly, the clear admission of wrongdoing. There would be no hiding behind careful legal language or PR spin. Local news cameras caught Douglas Vale leaving his law firm's building. His usual commanding presence deflated. Evelyn was spotted rushing from the charity board meeting, ignoring questions about her role in the harassment. Grayson, for once, was nowhere to be seen. For the first time in weeks, Alana woke naturally, without a jolt of anxiety. Sunlight filtered through her curtains, and the usual weight of dread was absent. She reached for her phone, expecting the familiar flood of hostility, but found something entirely different. Hundreds of supportive messages filled her inbox. Flight attendants from across the country shared stories of similar encounters they'd stayed quiet about. Passengers who'd witnessed other incidents of crew harassment expressed relief that someone finally stood up. Even strangers wrote about how her stand resonated with their own struggles against privileged abuse. "You showed us we don't have to accept humiliation as part of the job," one message read. "My daughter wants to be a flight attendant," another said. "Thanks to you, she'll enter a better industry." Alana sat in bed, reading message after message, letting the impact of what she'd accomplished sink in. The victory wasn't just about money or bans. It was about shifting what people believed they had to tolerate. Her phone buzzed with a call from Raphael. His voice carried a mix of pride and regret. "I should have stood stronger with you from the start," he said. "We all knew these things happened, but we accepted them as unchangeable. You proved they weren't. You came through when it mattered," Alana assured him. "The crew room is different now," Raphael continued. "People are talking openly about past incidents, sharing what they won't accept anymore. You changed more than policy. You changed mindsets." While they talked, Julia's name flashed on call waiting. Alana switched over to hear her attorney's voice, bright with satisfaction. "The airline's training department just called," Julia announced. "They want you to help develop their new crew protection protocols, not as a PR move, They specifically want your insight on the power dynamics we exposed. Alana sat straighter. They're serious about changes? Dead serious. The Vail incident scared them more than they'll admit. Other airlines are watching. Nobody wants to be the next company explaining why they protected abusive passengers. After hanging up, Alana walked to her closet, considering what to wear for her first public appearance since the settlement. Nina arrived just in time, carrying coffee and her characteristic wisdom. "Wear something that makes you feel strong," her grandmother advised, sorting through hangers. Not their version of proper, your version of powerful. They settled on a crisp charcoal suit that Nina had given her when she first got her wings. As Alana dressed, news alerts kept buzzing. The story wasn't fading, it was evolving. Industry publications were analyzing the policy implications. Legal journals were citing the case as a precedent for corporate accountability. Social commentators were discussing the intersection of privilege, race, and service industry respect. "You didn't just win a case," Nina observed, watching her granddaughter apply subtle makeup. "You started a conversation." Cameras gathered outside the airport terminal, but their presence felt different now. These weren't vultures waiting for a scandal. They were chronicling a victory. Alana walked through the sliding doors with measured steps, her heels clicking confidently on the polished floor. Airport staff nodded respectfully as she passed. Travelers glanced from her to the television screens overhead, where news channels still cycled through headlines about the settlement and ban. Some smiled in recognition. A young girl in a junior pilot's jacket pointed and whispered excitedly to her mother. The terminal that had once felt like an arena of humiliation now felt like a testament to perseverance. Every gate she passed held memories of service, both good and challenging. But none held fear anymore. The Vails' power had been stripped away, leaving only the stark evidence of their character. On overhead screens, financial news tracked the airline industry's scramble to update harassment policies. Another monitor showed footage of Douglas Vail's law firm announcing his voluntary departure from the partnership. A third replayed clips of Evelyn Vail's tense exit from her charity board meeting. Crew members in uniform stopped to thank her. One senior attendant mentioned that passengers seemed more mindful of their behavior since the case. A gate agent shared that her supervisors had already implemented clearer protocols for handling passenger misconduct. "We had our first entitled passenger try to throw their status around yesterday," the agent said with a smile. "My supervisor shut it down immediately and cited your case specifically." Near a busy intersection of terminals, Alana passed the first-class lounge where passengers like the Vails once held court. Now a sign prominently displayed updated conduct policies. Inside, travelers behaved with noticeable courtesy toward the staff. A group of new higher flight attendants recognized her during their terminal walkthrough. Their trainer, instead of hurrying them along, paused to let Alana share a few words of encouragement. "Your uniform is your pride, not your permission to be disrespected," she told them. The trainer nodded emphatically, adding that this was now part of their core training message. Alana's destination was Gate A7, where she would meet Julia to discuss the training consultancy. The same gate where, weeks ago, Owen had first witnessed the Vail family's behavior. Now it felt like a fitting location to begin the next phase of industry change. Morning light streamed through the giant windows, catching the edge of a departing aircraft's wing. Alana stopped to watch the plane gather speed, lift gracefully from the runway, and climb into the brightening sky. On the gate's display screen, another news update scrolled past, detailing the extent of the Vail family's travel ban. A calm smile crossed her face as she watched the aircraft grow smaller against the clouds. Justice, like that plane, had risen above the artificial altitude of privilege. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.